Hello, good evening. Welcome to the next panel of the European Vegan Summit. My name is Paulina Januszewska. I'm a journalist of Krytyka Polityczna, and I have an honor and pleasure, of course, of moderating a discussion entitled How to Connect the Dots. We will explore the importance of collaboration and networking within the vegan industry to foster innovation and growth. I would like to thank the Green Rev Institute and Portuguese Vegetarian Association, which is a partner in this session, for organizing this event. But foremost, I would like to thank you, our guest, Sebastiano Cossia Castiglioni, for accepting this invitation. Hello, Sebastiano. Thank you for being here with us. Sebastiano is an animal rights activist, vegan investor, entrepreneur, chair of the board and director of Natural Order Acquisition Corporation, the founder of the Plant-Based Empowerment Foundation, owner and honorary chairperson of Quercia and co-founder of Bontasana. Sebastiano serves on the board and advisory board of several conservation and animal rights organizations. Hello, Sebastiano, once again.
Hello, Paulina. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me well. I'm currently in Zurich, not with the best connection possible, but I hope sound and image are coming through.
Thank you. You can surely guess that I have many questions for Sebastiano, but we have only an hour. So I also would like to invite everyone who is listening to us to join this conversation. And if you have your own questions, please write them in the chat. And in the second part of our meeting, I will pass them on to our guest. I think we can start. So the first question is, when I read about your social engagement and your career, the main question immediately comes to my mind is, how did it happen? How did it happen that the investor, entrepreneur, has become a full-time activist? Where did this come from? What were the origins of your activism, or maybe I should say, founding myths, of course, in a positive way?
Absolutely. Well, being an activist came first. I was first an activist and then everything else. I started when I was 15. I had the luck of running into an information table about animal experimentation in Milan, my birth city. And I picked up the information, went home, read everything overnight, became a vegetarian and became an activist. And then obviously eventually became a vegan. And I've been an activist since then. So been an activist against animal experimentation. I was very active in anti-hunting activities. And then I've been part of several organizations, and now I'm on the board or advisory board of several organizations that fight for animals. So Akashinga, for instance, that works in Africa and has the largest women rangers army protecting animals in Africa, based in Zimbabwe, but expanded in other places. Animal equality, of course, Animal Outlook, Sea Shepherd, which I'm very proud of having been an advisory board member for a long time. But anyway, my activism came before everything else, and it's what shaped my activities following. So I became a vegan investor because I was a vegan activist.
Yeah, and I can see that in your, for example, email footer, vegan investor, and I hear that you are talking about it with pride. I hope so. And what do you want to show in this way when you talk to the other people, to your business partners? How this ever hindered your business, or maybe it helped actually to make you helping you with making money and make a success?
Well, I write vegan investor in my email and everywhere else because I'm very proud of being vegan. It's what shapes my entire life, and my ethics are shaped by that. And I would never invest in anything that is not 100% compatible with my ethics. And so I have invested in different fields, but especially in the replacement of animals, in the food sector, in the materials sector, in the science sector. And I can't say that this has helped me in any particular way. I just like to be very open about who I am and what I do, and I'm very straightforward about what I can invest in or what I cannot. Believe it or not, to this day, I keep receiving investment offers from people who, run fish farms or produce cheese, or I asked them, how is that compatible? Did you read that I'm vegan? How is that compatible? Oh, well, but it's not. And I would say that my primary goal in investing in this sector is not to make money, but it is to shape the world in a different way. At the same time, showing that investing in the right things can be successful. And so it makes sense.
So that why actually other businesswomen don't think like you? What is the biggest problem with that? Because we are talking about connecting the dots, the between climate and environmental issues, animal rights, human rights, and the business which led us to catastrophe. Actually, it can't make more money. It can be very very harmful for us, and we don't have the future. So why the businessmen don't think about that, in your opinion? And is it
It's not an easy question, knowing what other people think or do not think and why, but the evidence, it's so overwhelming that this is the direction we need to take for everything. And, in the food business, but in general, because of climate. And the most immediate way that we can tackle climate change is on a personal basis by choosing what we eat, having an enormous impact without having to move governments and policies and entire countries into any direction, or with gigantic plans, but simply choosing what we eat every day, we can have a major impact. And of course, you're familiar with the calculations, but if even 1/3 of the world population turned vegan, we would tackle climate change immediately, and it would be resolved. And it's obvious that this is the direction the world needs to take. But it's not only because of climate change. It is. And I've made several presentations about this throughout my career. The point is, this is inevitable anyway. The world is running out of water. The world is running out of resources. The waste because of animal food is enormous and unsustainable. And I'll give you just two numbers here that most people will know, but that you have to keep in mind. 80% of all arable land on the planet is used to feed animals, whether it's pasture or if it's crops for the animals. At the same time, it produces only 18% of the calories consumed on the planet. It's terrifying. We're basically wasting 4/5 of the planet's arable land to produce only less than 1/5 of the calories the world consumes. It's insane. And at a cost that is not sustainable anyway, because the world is absolutely and quickly running out of fresh water. And again, this animal agriculture uses most of the water of the planet, more than any other industry, more than any other human use, more than anything else, more than all other agriculture combined. It is not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. The problem is that at political level, corruption is such that these industries perpetuate their their system at the expense of the planet and of the entire population. Just imagine that the meat and dairy industry receives, or animal agriculture in general, receives more than $500 billion a year in subsidies. Of course, they can spend a few billion in corrupting every politician they can reach, and in disinformation campaigns not to hinder their industry. I mean, any industry would be happy to receive $500 billion in free subsidies to destroy the planet. You can imagine. So the enemy we're fighting is gigantic and powerful, but the evidence is so overwhelming against what they stand for that it's obvious we'll have to go in this direction. So to answer your question, any smart business person will know that this is the way to go. We need to move away from animal agriculture completely, from any exploitation of animals. Otherwise, the planet's going to die. There's no alternative. So I don't know why not everyone thinks so, but it's mostly because they don't know, or because they have an interest in the wrong thing.
I think that George Monbiot probably said that we're going to have a crisis like this one in 2008, but because of breaking the food producing system. So yeah, I think that it's very big issue. But I would like to talk about how how can you, as an investor, to get more entrepreneurs, businessmen to speak your language in your discourse, in your narration? How you encourage them to invest in a vegan industry, or make their businesses cruelty-free, for example?
Okay, well, it's not easy, and in fact, in the last couple of years, a lot of vegan businesses have suffered. And that's simply because the industry has reacted using some of the billions they get from taxpayers' money and from the governments to fight back. So something that not many people know, both in the US and in Europe, the meat and dairy industry pays supermarkets to shrink the space for vegan products and not to restock the shelves. Can you imagine that? You go to a supermarket, you want to buy something vegan, and you can't find it because it's sold out. No, it's because they purposely not restock it on the shelves, and they're paid for that. And it's a scandal. And imagine that this industry pays supermarkets to reduce the space for vegan products. I'm sure we all go to do shopping and we're surprised, why is there such a small section? And why does it always run out? Well, it's on purpose. We know as a fact that consumption of plant-based products keeps rising. It's never stopped growing. But at the same time, there's enormous pushback from the industry that invents lies such as, that vegan food is hyper-processed, or, whatever they can invent and then spend billions in campaign to support their lies, they will do. But so what we can do in a situation like this is, we obviously cannot tell investors and business people, invest in anything vegan, it's going to make money, because it's not. You're fighting against the biggest evil industry in the world, together with the weapons and oil industry and the pharmaceutical industry, although they're all connected. But anyway, so what you want is to focus on where the world is going. Would you invest in something like animal agriculture, knowing that the resources of the planet are running out and it cannot be supported? It will not be there. Or just think of the swine flu crisis at the moment. And imagine if that's sustainable from any standpoint. They kill millions and millions and millions of animals because of a disease that is spread exactly because of the way they raise the animals. It doesn't make sense. And all of these industries, let's keep it in mind, the dairy industry, the meat industry, the egg industry, the chicken industry, and the fishing industry would not last 1 week if they didn't have public subsidies. They would all be bankrupt. And this is horrifying. So what do I tell business people? I say, why would you perpetuate a business that only survives on subsidies and does not make sense on its own? And it's on the path of self-destruction and destruction. And that's the main argument to make. Then everything else about alternatives to animals makes sense from an environmental standpoint, from a cost standpoint, from also a social standpoint. There's one important thing that I would like to mention, and I'm sorry I'm going too long, but when people talk about food waste, and they say, oh, it's a shame that we waste, 1/3 of the food in the homes in the West is thrown away. Well, think that to produce 1 calorie of meat, you have to use 99 calories of plants. So I don't care about wasting 1/3 of the food when I know that I could avoid wasting 100 times what we consume. 100 times. That is scary. That is real waste, wasting 99 calories out of 100 to eat the wrong stuff that will, by the way, kill you in a long term because it hinders your health as well. So there are logical arguments to make, and they're very convincing. And I think those who don't realize which direction the world is going and the economy will eventually go are making a mistake.
Do you have any examples of cooperation like this? You are going to someone who, I don't know, have a meat business or something like that, and then changed everything because of you?
No, I don't. But what I know is I have invested in over 90 companies in the alternatives to animals, and some of these companies are thriving and have produced some of the most interesting products on the planet that are changing the way people eat. And so what has happened, if you want, indirectly, because I would never be an investor in a company that exploits animals, but because of some of the companies, for instance, I invested in Beyond Meat in 2012. I don't know if anybody even knew the name in 2012, but Beyond Meat created some of the first very interesting, very popular, beautiful, high quality alternatives to meat. And then the meat industry and other players like the big supermarket chains have created their own brands and their own products of the same kind. So indirectly, we created this change. And nowadays, you can find vegan burgers and vegan alternatives everywhere, almost everywhere. And this is because, as I was saying before, consumption of these products keeps rising. There is no question. No matter what anyone says, the numbers don't lie. More people, and they're not 100% vegan at all, but they're all flexitarian. But people are reducing consumption of meat and dairy and fish as well because they know it's unhealthy and because of many other reasons. And so these products are ever more popular. It's not by chance that all these companies have created their own version of the vegan things, and instead of promoting Beyond Meat, say, or vegan brands, they create their own because it's convenient. Let me just bring an example that comes from just a few days ago. Nutella. Finally, Ferrero has put vegan Nutella all over the planet. Why? Because obviously there's demand, and obviously they know that this is going to work and be profitable. And this is just one example. But when one of the most popular food items in the world appears in a version that clearly says vegan, it doesn't say plant-based, okay, it says vegan. That's a sign, that consumption is going in that direction.
Okay, I didn't know about that, so it's good to hear. But is it possible to, introduce changes in current economic system? How to break this food production system, which is led by, monopolists. Do we need a collapse or maybe some kind of backlash to restore a new reality, vegan reality?
Well, you're asking a question to a pessimist when it comes to politics. So, in my view, politicians are so corrupt. It is very hard for people to address the changes they want through politicians and through the political system. It's so easy for an industry to just pay the politicians to vote however they want, and we have demonstrations of this. I would like to suggest to all the viewers, if they haven't seen it yet, to watch the movie Food for Profit, which looks from the inside at the connection and corruption within the European Union and the system and how it works and how politicians collaborate in a corrupt manner with the meat and dairy industry. And it's shocking when you find out. I mean, I knew about it, but this movie shows even more than what we thought. So you're really asking someone with a very pessimistic view about this. I don't think politicians are going to care about anyone's needs, if not their own and their pockets. In most cases, of course, not everyone, but unfortunately, in the European Union, people in charge of agriculture, animal welfare, environment, and so forth, most are absolutely and visibly corrupt. And this movie, by the way, shows how and shows where. But I think change, again, is going to come mostly from individual change, individual habits change. But also, let's not forget how important it is to inform everyone about what goes on. So the movie Food for Profit, for instance, which has been seen by millions of people now, tells you how the system works and shows you corruption very clearly. And a lot of people watch a movie like this, and because the way animals are mistreated, move away from eating meat, and then realize how the politicians are taking advantage of it. Because of this movie, 2 prominent European politicians retired and are not going to be in the parliament anymore. They couldn't even run because they were shamed publicly, and more, of course, deserve the same fate. But of course, everyone needs to complain and rebel against this corrupt system. And what we can do is inform other people and share the work of these fantastic organizations that do undercover investigations and show what happens behind the scenes. Oh, thank you for putting the link, by the way. Excellent.
Yeah, so speaking of European Union, so we have a very bad reality because we have wasted the last 5 years, and introduction of changes regarding climate law could be faster. Nothing has changed and happened on animal rights. So do we, as you know, common people, or maybe activists, or maybe media workers, have any serious impact on that what politicians do? You said something about that, but maybe the main role could be played, should be played by business people who has resources, you know.
Well, yes. Again, I think it's the interaction of several levels that can create change. So you absolutely need more information, because when people find out what happens to animals, how their food is produced, what impact it has on their health and on the planet, they're encouraged to change. And so that is key. And then, of course, in the entrepreneurial world, if people start making the right choices instead of the wrong ones, then things obviously change and improve. It's very hard to convince people in the entrepreneurial sector because even they don't realize what they're doing. I remember presenting data to investors in a few years ago, and they were surprised because they invest in things that are obviously going to fail, as opposed to investing in the right alternatives. But it's a combination of efforts at every level. But again, I think the most important thing is that we spend time and energy informing other people about what's going on. When they see the reality, then they realize what is actually going on. So organizations like Animal Outlook and Animal Equality and others that do undercover investigations are fundamental, because they show what's really happening and how the collusion between politicians, governments, institutions, and the animal abuse industry hide the truth from them.
Okay, we have also a question to answer to every guest at this year of European Vegan Summit. I'm asking you about the future. What will the vegan market look like in 20 years? And what significant milestones can you point to this perspective? I know it's very difficult, but maybe you could... Yeah.
I would like to switch the question around. What is the food market going to look like in 20 years? It's going to be much more vegan than now, because it's inevitable. In 20 years, unless the world changes course, fresh water will run out completely. So there will be no agriculture. Obviously, that's not a possible scenario. So there will be change in that respect. And the only way to save resources and feed the planet at the same time is to switch massively away from animal-based food. And so milestones, unfortunately, very visible to all of us, are the continuous crisis of climate and crisis of water shortage worldwide. And if you read the news, you'll see every year it's more dramatic. Of course, climate change, but the scarcity of water is terrifying, and it endangers the entire production of food for the planet. So I encourage everyone to read about recent events in the United States where most of the water in one particular state was pumped out to water alfalfa, which was then dried and shipped to Saudi Arabia. And it's so insane. And most farmers in this state were running out of water completely to produce any kind of food. And this is the mentality that needs to change. So the scenario in 20 years, there's no question that either we're all dead or it will be much more vegan. And the milestones we can see year after year. I think as soon as the water crisis comes to a point where everyone is running out of food and doesn't have water to use, but water is used massively for animal agriculture, there will be change. It's inevitable.
Okay, we have a lot of questions, but maybe I will ask you about one last thing from me, because, you know, I write about climate change, animal rights from almost 10 years. And I feel sometimes burnt out, and I don't know how to deal with that. And I would like to know, how do you deal with it? How to make yourself to believe that our fight is serious, is important, and we could continue that.
Yes. Well, imagine that I've been fighting this battle for the past 43 years. So I spent some time on it. And first of all, there's progress. This is obvious. It's under everyone's eyes. The numbers are there in terms of how many more people join our cause or understand our cause, and how much more information is around. And progress is inevitable anyway. And what's interesting is, regardless of why people make this choice, more and more and more and more people eat less animal products and more plant-based products. That's the reality. On the other hand, when you talk about burnout and being frustrated by a battle that seems impossible to win, I have a formula that you can all use. Support and work with rescue organizations and sanctuaries, because there you see the individuals, the animals that would otherwise not be saved, or you see the animals that are saved from the horrible industry or saved from abused or rescued. And that is so real and so factual and so impactful that it just lifts your spirit completely. One animal saved, when you look him in the eyes, you realize that you haven't wasted a second of your life if you've worked for that, even if you're saving just them.
Good to hear that. Thank you. And I think that I will read the first question. Why there are not many investors like you? Yeah, we talked about that, but maybe you will talk something. You will say something more. Investor that believe in the vegan future. What could make the investment in vegan future more attractive to others? Maybe we could, talk about some new narration about vegan world. I don't know.
It's
Maybe
not so much
change
a
the
matter of
discourse. Mm-hmm.
no, it's not so much how you talk about the investment in vegan enterprises. The rationality of the investment makes sense. There's no question. The numbers are very clear. Not many companies have been created and founded on the right premises. There was a moment when there was a lot of enthusiasm about the investments, and the valuations of the companies were way too high, completely irrational. And many of these companies have failed, which is not good in the eyes of potential investors who say, why should I invest in a sector where so many companies go bankrupt? But again, the point is, where is this going in terms of macro economy and in terms of numbers that we can all see? It is obvious that this is the only way to go. It needs to be done efficiently. There are fantastic companies out there that have done really well. And I'm in Zurich, so I'd like to mention one that you might know called Planted, which has created some of the most delicious and phenomenal plant-based meats ever made, and is now distributed throughout Europe, and it's growing and growing and growing. And many other companies are of such high quality and vision that they are good examples. There are bad examples as well. I think what is important is to bring the attention of investors not only onto purely vegan productions, but on how successful it is to provide vegan alternatives in general, whether it's materials or whether it's food or whether it's anything else. There's no question. The numbers say it very clearly. Everything is going in that direction, and the numbers show that there's more and more people are buying alternatives, and that's inevitable. It happens regardless of the pressure of the industry and regardless of the corruption of politicians and everyone else.
But do you see any particular politicians who can be a vegan activists?
Well, I think that there are fantastic example inside the organization, Green Reb and so forth, and some become enlightened because they realize what is happening, but it's a very hard battle. These are a few individuals fighting against everyone else. When you talk about agriculture, the excuse is, oh, we're protecting the farmers, which obviously is a lie. The European Union protects and subsidizes the big industry and it couldn't care less about the farmers. And I've seen fantastic examples of farmers switching from animal agriculture to growing alternatives like mushrooms or other cultivations that are, profitable and make sense in every respect. And that's a potential change. But politicians are, again, you're talking to a pessimist. So what can I say? I mean, I think that's thinking and hoping that politicians are going to change and improve is a waste of time.
And what do you think about helping the change with more strict regulation? You talked about subsidize, vegan businesses and this financial side. And what about this regulation? What should be done and to minimize the space for the business as usual? Do you think it's possible to win this battle without help from more direct activities that come from the legislation?
The legislation system is corrupt. So if you think that the animal abuse industry receives over $500 billion in subsidies every year, and there's almost zero investment in alternatives and research. For instance, cell-based meat, if it had, even a fraction of the investment that is thrown away in subsidies to the horrible industry, would be so far ahead and would be a true alternative. But of course, if no one invests money, it's not going to go anywhere, and it's having a very slow progress. So obviously, moving investments from and subsidies from one horrible industry to useful alternatives would be great. But again, you run against the politicians. Who's going to pay them more? Who's going to corrupt them with more money? Obviously, the animal food industry is going to do that.
We have a very interesting question. In what ways are vegan activists engaging in the cultural religious establishment specifically in different countries, and what is their response like? I'm very curious.
I am the last person who can discuss religion, but I think that the overall, at least the religions that mean well and have peaceful ideas and have ideas of nonviolence should naturally marry the idea of not abusing and mistreating animals. But I don't want to take this from a religious perspective, because frankly, the suffering of animals is so real. It really doesn't matter to me how a certain religion point of view sees that or analyzes that, or if it's part of a religious culture, for instance, animal sacrifice or eating certain animals and so forth. Their suffering is real and cannot be disputed. So it doesn't matter what viewpoint you come from, you cannot ignore real suffering, and no matter what the excuse.
And what about movies? Because you recommend us a few, and someone is writing that I just watched Emily from Paris on Netflix, and vegan actor plays non-vegan chef. Oh my gosh. Why all vegans cannot fight in their professional area for veganism? Good question.
Well,
so
some of
do you
them
have any
do.
recommendations?
Some of them do. Some are just squished by their roles, and I can't speak for those who are not consistent with their ethical views. You couldn't force me to pretend not to be vegan in any situation. So I get in trouble a lot for the opposite, because I always shout that I'm vegan anyway, no matter what I am. So I think we need to be courageous and brave and consistent, and always keep the animals in mind and think about their suffering, and that they deserve all of our energies, and without any hesitation and without any compromise.
I think the TV series can be very encouraging to become vegan, and pop culture has the power, a big power. So maybe, do you have any titles and other titles of movies when we can see some examples, or maybe docu-series or something like that to our viewers?
Well, there are many vegan movies and documentaries that have appeared over time, and many of them deserve our attention. So, for instance, Game Changers is quite interesting because of the perspective it puts on health and achieving phenomenal sports results from a vegan standpoint, and that's very interesting. But there's a lot of the classic documentaries: What the Health, Cowspiracy, Seaspiracy, by the way, which focuses on the oceans and is terrifying. Forks Over Knives is a classic, and then there are more, but I would say that there's plenty of choice, and the more you watch, the more you want to watch, because there's fantastic information there. But let me again encourage everyone to watch Food for Profit and to show it to other people. That's something we can do. Invite friends over who are not vegan and show them one documentary. And by the way, there are some that are more gruesome and some that are less. And so possibly the right path is to show them first something that does not show too much animal suffering, although it's there, but taking the subject from different perspectives and then giving them more information. But one great idea is hold movie nights where you serve vegan food and you show a vegan documentary, and you're going to turn a lot of people the right way.
Okay, I have good news, because Simone Biles writes that, funny enough, I read yesterday that Lucas Bravo wants his restaurant in Emily in Paris to go vegan. So fingers crossed.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And
That's
another question is, to what extent are failures of vegan businesses due to insisting on a local supply chain or whole organic foods?
Very little. That's not one of the main, either one is not a main characteristic of the companies that I have seen. And not many, in fact, a small minority were ever organic. And in terms of local supply, I think it really depends on what they are focusing on. But those are not reasons for failure. Reasons for failure are, sometimes very well-meaning people with fantastic intentions and very good ideas just did not know how to run a company. And that's a problem. And then others just thought their companies was too valuable when it was not. As an investor, I ran into people saying, with a company that had zero revenue, thinking that their company was worth several billion. It was not. And in fact, it disappeared. So you need more realism, and you need more professional managers in charge of companies to make them thrive.
Okay. How can we follow you, Sebastiano, on any platforms in social media, or maybe you have a blog or something like that, to be in contact with you, or see how your career is going and your activism?
I do not have a blog yet, although I'm planning that because I think it makes sense. And I'm a very discreet presence in Instagram. That's the only platform that I use. And I'm going to post my account, so that but I'm going to send it to you, and maybe you can post it for everyone, because I can't from here. But if people want to follow me, I will make sure to share interesting information when I can. And I mostly post informative things in LinkedIn. It's a professional platform, I realize, but that's where most of the content that I share belongs, because I talk about the industry and I talk about facts that pertain to the professional side of the fight for animals.
You said us how you became a vegetarian, but we have a question how you became vegan, actually.
Oh, well,
and when it, okay.
Okay, well, it's when I became vegetarian, there was not enough information around to realize that it did not make sense to be just vegetarian. But over the years, as I acquired more information, I became more familiar with organizations that worked in the world of stopping the abuse of animals. Then I realized that, of course, the dairy industry is one of the most evil industries ever conceived on the planet. So let's say it took me a few years, but in my 20s, I turned to veganism and then became ever more fanatic about it, which I'm happy to be. I currently don't even sit down for dinner with people who will eat animal food. I refuse to do that. Life is too short to, witness such horror. So I don't do that at all.
Okay, I have also a question to me because someone said that I said a very important thing about being tired. Oh yeah, because of years of fighting for animal rights, and someone is asking if I see more vegan journalists. Actually, I feel very lonely, and of course, in my editorial office, there are a lot of people, but I work for NGO, so this is specific place. But this subject isn't very popular in media, but it's changing, and I hope that it will be more and more popular. I don't know how it looked like in the other media because I am very, connected with a Polish one, and I want to make this discussion about the vegan world more and more important to common people, right? And when I think about vegan journalist, I can nobody is coming to my mind actually from famous journalist in Poland. Maybe I don't know. I don't remember now, but I can't say any name. So yeah, it's difficult. And we have another question to Sebastiano. You said about politicians, but what about human rights activists, climate activists? Why they cannot connect the dots? Interesting.
That's a big mystery to me as well. And but the way to break the barrier is to bring some of the good battles together. One fantastic example is Akashinga, this organization created by Damien Mender in Zimbabwe. He started with a group of 16 women rangers, and now there are almost 900 people working for the organization, fighting against poachers and protecting animals, and empowering women goes hand in hand with protecting animals in a case like this. So imagine an army of rangers with machine guns protecting animals, women who are empowered themselves and can protect themselves in an environment that otherwise is quite negative, and everyone is vegan because that is mandatory in the organization. And so that is how you spread the message, and then the families become vegan as well, and you are protecting at the same time the environment, the ecosystem, the animals, women's rights, and so on and so forth. So combining battles is always a good idea, but I don't espouse the point of view that says you either join every battle or your battle is worthless. The battle for animal rights and against animal abuse is important and worth it on its own and must be pursued because we believe that animals have the right not to be subject to suffering, not to be killed. And that's fundamental. Whether it it fits perfectly into other battles. It's pretty obvious to me, but anyway, I don't think that we have to be, let's say, involved in every single battle and everything is the same. No, it is not. And animals deserve our attention more than ever. That's for sure. Doesn't mean that everything else is not important, but it doesn't mean that you can't do one thing predominantly and not all at the same time.
I always say there's no feminism without veganism, so please remember that. And I say to other girls and people who want to fight for equal rights, we actually, Sebastiano said something about Nutella because we have a question about that, but maybe would you like to add something to that? Because I read that it's a game changer, and Eduardo also said that. Maybe we can, talk about other examples in business nowadays who are game changers. Do you see anything like that?
First, let me say I completely agree with you that there's no feminism without veganism. I completely agree with the statement. We have to keep, women's rights always ahead of our agenda, but they go hand in hand with what we think is, the problem with animal abuse. So I completely agree with you. On products, we were discussing Nutella. That's game changing with its defects because it still uses palm oil. So I don't even consider it fully vegan because of that. But it's great progress when one of the most successful products in the world openly says that it's making a vegan version and sells it as a vegan version. It shows when a company as big and as astute as that creates a product of this kind, it shows that there's demand. They would not do it unless they knew this is going to be successful. So it's a fantastic sign. And I hope many more products, popular products and very successful products follow suit and create a vegan version as well. And it's very likely. This is a groundbreaking example because it's one of the most successful companies in the world in the food sector and possibly one of the most successful, most famous products in the world as well. And my goodness, if they go in this direction, then it's a good sign and good example for everybody.
And we have another question. Yesterday, there was a panel about where we are at the vegan economy as Europe versus other continents. Is Europe the leader in bringing the change in the food system transition, or we just got used to saying that? Very interesting. Maybe we can.
We should look at the latest numbers in terms of consumption. In my experience as an investor, I see more investment in the US than I see in Europe, and more innovation there than I see here. So there are fantastic and excellent companies here, and the idea of animal welfare and animal rights has been in Europe for a longer time than it has in the US. But in terms of innovation, like it is for every other sector, and especially the tech sector and sectors that involve innovation, changing minds and adopting new ways of doing things, the United States are always ahead. There's no question.
And another one from Harsha. Why are people resisting lab-cultured meat and even plant-based dairy via legislation in certain countries? Is it because of corruption and wanting to protect the economy, profit alone, or something more?
Definitely corruption and protecting the interests of the current industry. Now realize that if lab culture meat received just a fraction of the investments that the meat and dairy industry receive, it would be so far ahead, and it would be such an incredible alternative because people who eat meat would eat exactly the same, but without animal suffering, without pesticides, without antibiotics, without all the negative sides. And of course, it's not the healthiest product on the planet because it's still meat, but it's so much better than the animal version. And it could be enormously useful, successful in saving resources and in everything else that we already discussed. But of course, the meat and dairy industry are corrupting everyone at every level to make sure that they can stop that alternative because it's too good to be true. And they just don't want it to happen. Imagine if tomorrow morning in a supermarket you had a meat culture, lab culture burger that cost less than a regular burger. They would be out of business again. But please consider every time you think about them and their products in the supermarkets and their prices, that if they did not receive the subsidies they do, they would all be bankrupt already. So they live because of our taxes and the public money that goes into their coffers through corruption. That's the only reason why they exist. Otherwise, they would be out of business tomorrow morning.
And I have a question because you said about feminism and I said about feminism, and there is vegan men are perceived as less masculine, and this is very common opinion, and we of course are fighting with that. But business is a man's world, so is it a subject for you to making vegan more manly or something like that? Is it a topic for you, some issue?
Frankly, the more women are in business and the more we follow the example of women, the better the world is going to be. If women were in charge, there would be less wars and everything would be much better. So frankly, if I hear anything like that, I couldn't care less. I wish I could be more like the women who raised me, my grandmother, my mother, who were heroes and hard workers and phenomenal examples of what I try to be every day. So I frankly, I couldn't care less about that argument. If someone feels that they're less manly because they're eating less meat, it's their problem. But to me, it's a quality, not a defect.
Would you like to say to our viewers for the final, I don't know, something to encourage to fight more and continue our fight? Maybe I don't know.
I say
the
this
moment
very,
to
very seriously. Absolutely. I say this very seriously. Please go and support a local rescue or go and visit a sanctuary. To me, it's always a healing experience, and it again brings to me very clearly why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's very important. It's not a minor thing. You get in touch very directly with the reason why we do what we do. So that's an advice that I would feel like giving everyone. Donate even as little as you can to rescues and sanctuaries because they're saving animals every day, and go and visit them. It's a healing thing. I would not have survived being an activist for decades if I had not visited animals and experienced looking in their eyes so often to see the explanation of why and to understand the reason why I do what I do. So that's a very, very important advice. And please take it seriously because it does help your soul. And then the other thing is what we said before, share information. But here's something that I will say that is going to be controversial, and I don't care because that's my life anyway. Don't shout in people's faces that they're murderers or they eat meat so they're bad, blah blah, because it produces the opposite effect. If you go inside a store with a megaphone and scream, you're a murderer because you're buying meat, you're turning more people to consume meat. You're getting the exact opposite effect of what you want. Gentle but complete information is what wins. We need to be calm. We don't need to yell because we are right. And we can show it and we can demonstrate it and we can talk about it in a calm way. But the best activism is the one that provides information and good alternatives. The worst activism is the one that screams in people's faces and creates more meat eaters than it changes them to veganism.
Beautifully said. I can add nothing more. Thank you very much, Sebastiano. It was a very great discussion, and thank you all for being here. And I thank Green Rev Institute for organizing this event. And I hope that you had a great and inspirational time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Paulina, for the wonderful questions, and thank you, Green Rev, for doing such a fantastic job always. And it is such a pleasure and an honor to be with you. And thank you, everyone, for listening and for watching. And let's keep loving animals and saving them. That's the best thing we can do.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.